Welcome to Evolving on Purpose with Matt Swartz. This podcast is where real leaders share the inner work behind their breakthroughs and where you'll find the tools and stories to work through whatever is holding you back from who you're meant to be so you can make the impact you're here to make and help change the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Evolving on Purpose podcast. This is episode 13, Prevention versus Creation. So I want to tell you guys about a client that I have. I have a client who gets sued. Not once, regularly, all the time. Most years I've worked with him, he has one or two lawsuits going on. Giant lawsuits. The kind of numbers that, like, for me, it's like, you know, multiple times my business revenue worth any of that, right? He has a very large business, very large lawsuits. And when I began seeing him, he was constantly anxious and paralyzed and challenged by these lawsuits, right? Try to tighten the contracts, try to improve the processes, try to, educate the team, try to, everything we could do to brace for the next one and prevent it from happening, right? But what we learned along the road was that actually the right thing to do was to stop trying to prevent the lawsuits. We started looking at them as a reality of the business that he's in, right? And he accepted that at his size, in his industry, in the way that these things work, it's going to happen. So now it's a line item, right? It's part of the budget. It's expected. And so every time he gets a new lawsuit, instead of freaking out like he did 5-10 years ago, he's like, all right, well, let's saddle up, right? So what that means is all the energy that he was spending bracing, right? Trying to prevent, trying to control, all of that now goes back into his work. That goes into building the business stronger, right? So he's not wasting that energy. He's using it better, right? So he'll get sued again, right? In a couple of years, right? But he's ready for it. And you can be too. So I've watched so many clients learn to become more and more effective after they stop defending and protecting themselves, right? Because then that energy can go to something better. And I think this connects really well with the episodes you guys just watched from Sarah Rollins, right? So, in that episode, we're talking about, right, dealing with these potential issues in the therapy industry, insurance, clawbacks, all of these things, right? And, I asked, right, how do we find safety, right? And I don't think it's, how can I prevent this from happening? What's ultimately been safety in my life is a sense of capability. Not my ability to prevent everything, not to control everything, and not pretending or trying to make sure that nothing bad ever happens, right? It's that sense that I can take these things on. So, shit happens, right? Nonstop. It's not going to stop happening, right? So Sarah says, if I spend all my energy trying to prevent something versus, okay, bad things can happen. It may or may not. And can we focus on my capacity to persevere and be resilient, right? She was getting it, right? She was locking it in. She said it better than I could because in that moment, she was like, she found it, right? It connected for her. And that's why I love these coaching episodes and this coaching work is like, I can read a script. I can give you a list of these things, but ultimately I watch people make the connections themselves in the way that makes sense for them. And then it actually clicks, right? If you could just read a book and do it, you would have already done that. We're smart people, right? It's that active process, right? So there's two ways to build a life, a business, a family, right? One is to spend your time trying to prevent all of the possible bad things happening to those things, right? And the other is to create something. Most of the leaders that I work with think they're doing the second, but they're actually doing the first. So let's break this down, okay? Growth is organic. It's not mechanical, okay? This has been so foundational to how I've been able to see growth in my business and my family and my clients' lives, right? I grew up just like you did, in this industrial revolution economy, replaceable parts. I mean, I grew up in Michigan. I'm right next to Ford, right? The birthplace of the assembly line. And what we do, if something in the assembly line breaks, we take it out and we put a new one. Okay. But here's the story, guys. A business, a team, a family, whatever you're leading, it's not a machine, and it doesn't work like a machine. You cannot just replace a part of your business, of your family, right? And expect it to run the way it did before. And as a founder, you know this. As much as somebody, when you started, was like, oh, just fire and hire somebody. It's like, yeah, but that person is interconnected with so many things. It's not just fire and hire somebody. There's all of this, let alone the cost, right, of retraining somebody and all that. But all the little things they touch and all the certain things that worked the way it worked because somebody was in the business for 5 years, that doesn't just change, right? So you can't, even with a process, right? Most processes, as a business owner, you're like, oh, just change the process. Well, this process is connected to that process is connected with this thing, and they're all interconnected, right? So, the employee is connected to the client relationship, the process is connected to, other things. And you as a founder, right? You're connected to all of it. And this is true as a leader on a team or any of the above, right? So Sarah says, when you're trying to fix, she was saying this in the episode, right? When fixing that, other things kind of tumble because everything's connected, right? So she got it. And as I grow in a leader, myself expands from me to a we. Right? I become a multicellular organism. I'm at the nucleus of it. That's in my family and my business, right? But you can't control it. It's just organized around you. And this is the breakthrough, right? It doesn't mean you are it. It means it is with you. It's a part of you, right? So a machine, well, you can protect that, or you can replace a part when it gets broken, right? An organism, you inject energy into it and it grows. You have to feed it. You have to give it soil and light, and then you kind of let it do what it does. So when you're trying to take somebody else's system and bolt it onto your business, when you're trying to read a personal growth book, a business book, grab a process from over here, a lot of the time you're trying to graft like a branch on from another tree that isn't native, and it doesn't really stick, versus hang on, wait, this tree's already growing, man. This business, this life, this family, this team, right? It's already growing. How can I pull energy into it? It's already got branches. It knows where it's going. So I can just feed those branches in the way they're growing. So what I want to help you guys do is I want to help you shift from this very mechanical way of thinking, even in business, to this more organic way. And this is part of why the things you think should work don't work the way you think they should, because you're thinking of this mechanically and it's actually organic, right? Now, caveat, I'm not saying don't build systems. I'm not saying don't build processes. I'm saying understand they're part of a multidimensional complex thing. They're meant to serve the organism, right? Okay, so let's get back to Sarah for a second, right? So I'm not trying to pick on Sarah. That's not what it's about. I'm trying to tease out, right, these really cool things that came up in this episode so naturally and organically, okay? If anything, I understand exactly what Sarah's going through because I've gone through these things. Once upon a time, I didn't own the clinic, but I was helping to build out. I was directing a clinic, right? Grew to, I think at one point, 16 therapists, right? So I get these dynamics, just to be clear, right? Sarah's a group practice owner in Metro Detroit. She does somatic work. Embodied wellness is the name of her practice. She's clearly sharp. She's self-aware. She does her own therapy, own coaching work. She does not lack insight, right? She's clearly very clever. We connected pretty much immediately, right? But if you listen to the story of how her practice got built in the beginning, she didn't plan it. She just started, she was stuck in her, agency work, and somebody suggested private practice, and she said, okay. She saw a couple of people, right? And then somebody else came in and, she offered them a couple of clients, and then that person filled up and she goes, oh, something's going on here, right? And then finally she reached a point where she was able to quit her other job and move into this full time because this thing was moving at an incredible rate, right? But she didn't plan that, right? She didn't go, I'm going to fill this clinician. Like that wasn't how it worked, right? This is organic growth. Nobody drew that into a strategic plan. And then, like it was this thing that was growing and evolving, and she followed it, right? She said, my business was the first place in my life where I didn't have that, right? The rest of my life is forced, but that wasn't how it started, right? So sit on this. The area that she wasn't forcing is what grew naturally and organically. I see this all the time. I see this for so many of my clients, right? In my foundations of flow work, right, in my model, forcing is one of these very toxic places that we get to that strips us of our creativity, rigidity, compulsions, right? And we miss the magic. We miss the organic creation. We miss the adventure, the play, the fun. That's why we usually get started in any of these things. So then she tells her story, right? She goes to practice starts growing. She does the Goldman Sachs program. She looks at EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. These are great programs, right? I enjoy EOS. I almost did the Goldman Sachs thing. I told you, right? But what's so important is this whole thing is working. And then she goes, I'm going to go and I'm going to figure out how to systematize this, how to let somebody else tell me how to do this better. It's like, hang on. Like, you just did that. You're doing this. What are you somebody else doesn't have the magic answer for you. I mean, they can have some answers and some insights, but I think it's really tempting then because, she goes through this program, it starts getting her back into a rigid mind, right? Like, I created all of these goals, she said, and they weren't really based in anything. They were just based in, well, I want to make more money. I should probably have higher profits, right? And the cost was, like she said, I don't think people were as happy, right? And she's not as happy. So here's what she said and didn't notice, right? Yes, the programs increased that rigidity, but she also said there were other ways in her life where she was operating with that like forced energy, right? So it's easy to tempt somebody. These programs bring that part out of us, right? And grow it and make it more intense. So the systems, the programs didn't make her rigid. It brought out this rigidity that was in there, right? And then it goes crazy and it starts, overgrowing, right? Notice areas of your life that feel forced versus more unforced. Notice the areas that feel more unforced and notice how they tend to kind of manage themselves a lot of times, right? Okay, so I want to be clear. So I'm not saying that creation just feels good and easy all of the time. No, it can be really scary, painful, challenging, right? We all get scared of failing. Sarah was talking about being scared of failing, scared of not having enough, the goal of just breaking even, right? I get that. I've been so scared of not having enough so many times, so scared of failing, anytime, right? But creation isn't the absence of fear. Creation is what happens inevitably, right? Fear's in there, challenge is in there. And we have to learn in that creation how to digest the pain, how to release the fear over time, and then how to build something beautiful, right? Like, look, I started, when I started my game, I was charging $50 a client. On a 50-50 split, making $25 a session, right? You do what you do to build the caseload, right? But then what's incredible is when you take a step back and you look at like, oh my God, look at all of these people I met and these opportunities I had. And how did I get from charging $25 an hour to building this whole expansive, helping build a group practice, like just incredible things. And there's this energy to it. There's this creative impulse that exists inside us, right? That I want people to tap into and I want them to feel and I want them to bring out and watch as those things bloom, right? So look, backing up from Sarah for a second. This is, again, obviously I'm commenting off this coaching episode, but the cool part is you're watching these things click for Sarah, and I really hope they'll continue to positively impact her, right? I want to talk about this organic versus mechanical growth thing, right? So I want you to picture a big tree in a forest, okay? A tree cannot prevent a hurricane. It can't prevent a tornado. It can't prevent an ice storm, a lightning bolt, right? There's nothing a tree can do about the weather. But what it can do is it can grow a root structure so deep, right? Deep enough and wide enough to hold it, right? And can grow a canopy healthy enough that losing a limb isn't fatal because it's so big, right? So the storm's going to come. A limb may come off. The tree doesn't die. It figures out how to keep growing from there. It grows around the wound, right? I don't know if you've ever seen like a tree with a limb get cut off and then it grows around it, right? So Sarah said, or I think I said to Sarah, right? I can't manage the winds, but I can grow. So this is about capability. It's not prevention. It's not control. Prevention is an infinite cost strategy. You're always going to be spending on that against something that either won't happen or is going to happen anyway. And so you just lose all of this energy, right? So prevention is an attempt to be safe, right? But like, hang on, you are safe. Everything is okay, right? But if you get rigid and try to control, and we have these defense mechanisms that I'll talk more about as we go along, right? Then we lose our play. We lose our creativity. We get stuck in fix. And then we're just fixing, structuring. And then it all gets too much. And then we start, we start feeling overwhelmed or burnt out or, wherever we go, right? So you can't build an adventure with control. So now, just to be clear, nobody's broken here. This is like, these things work on some level, right? There's been some experiences in your life where fixing and controlling and whatever, they were beneficial, right? They're the reason you got here. But you're safe now, right? And so what are you going to do? Are you going to spend the next 7 years building a really rigid business so you can protect yourself? Or are you going to build something that's like really enjoyable and really meaningful to you, right? So, what my client, who's dealing with the lawsuits, right, figured out is he recognized like he's this big ass tree in this forest, right? Something's going to hit him sooner or later. So he's going to put energy into that root system. He's going to keep growing those leaves, right? So the answer isn't prevent the lawsuit. The answer is build the thing that makes the lawsuit survivable so that when the wind comes, that tree can be stable. Okay. So look, again, putting this back on me. I've been here. I did this, right? I helped run this clinic. I was, assistant clinical director in Northville, right? And, on paper, I was going the right direction, more responsibility, bigger title, go, right? But eventually I had to take a step back. I said, hey, I can't do this job anymore. And the reason was because I didn't like the person that I'd become. I didn't know how to do it without controlling and forcing, right? Because that's what I had done. That's how I had been successful in my history. So I started building this thing, and then I have to defend it. I have to protect it. I got to keep moving. Come on. And it got heavier and heavier and yuckier and yuckier. And then that got yucky for all the people that I was supposed to be trying to help. The other therapists, especially, was like, I'm trying to teach them how to control everything. And some of them who are older than wiser than me are like, like, this isn't going to work, Matt. But I was approaching it from the only place that I knew, right? I didn't even know how to meet my own needs, right? How am I going to meet the needs of 16 frickin' people? I had to figure out some stuff first, right? So walked into my boss's office, said, I can't do this anymore. We had to find somebody new. It took about a year, but we did. It was a difficult transition, right? But I let go of the management. I took on more instructional design and training, and I was like, oh, this is so much better. I love this so much. I can be creative here, right? So I didn't leave because I failed at management. At least I don't think I wouldn't qualify it that way. I could have kept going and done a solid B minus, B plus, I don't know, job, right? But I left because I was spending all of this time trying to defend something that I didn't even want. And the second that I stopped defending it and moved back into that early stage creative energy, it was like, just felt so much lighter, right? But I didn't plan it. I couldn't have. That was the organic thing again, right? I didn't engineer what showed up. I just moved back into that creative space. So, look, when I played video games growing up, I would always try to like save all of my supplies, my potions, my money for the boss, just in case, this big boss would come and I would need it. Right. And so I wouldn't let myself use it along the road. But like every time I would like complete the game and I would have all of this stuff left over, it was like, why didn't I use it? Right. I was trying to like, right. But versus like, hey, I'll handle this. So I'll be okay. I'll be able to win this game. What's going on? So, we see this in real life. We see this in business. My goal is to get all of us, right, out of this state of, I need to prevent all of these bad things from happening, and acknowledge that you can grow and put that creative energy into the areas that feel best for you. And yes, challenging stuff is going to happen. Bad stuff is going to happen. Hard stuff is going to happen. And you are capable of facing it. How do I know that? Because you faced every single challenge up until this point. And that's why you're sitting here trying to run a business, trying to lead a team, trying to, impact the world around you, because you are capable. I want you to notice the areas in your life where you're trying to prevent instead of create. And I want you to think about, where can we grab some energy back? Right? So that we have it to create the things that we want to create. When I ask people, they'll tell me, oh, I'd really love to do this thing. And I'll ask them, why don't you? And they will give me a list of excuses, which is effectively all of my energy is going here, here, and here. So I can't put it over here. And when we really get deep into those areas, it's like, yeah, those are the areas that we're putting energy in to keep us safe. But we're already safe. We've been safe for years. Right? But we have these old patterns running. We built this machine, we built this machine to fix the problem, but now the machine is the problem. And now we're stuck all day maintaining it and oiling it. And, and the joke is, it's not a machine. It's a tree. You should pour some water on it. Give it some love, What I want you to ask is, if I had that energy back that I'm using for preventing, what could I create? The reality of the human nervous system, the way the brain works, we're in one of two states. We're either in fear or we're in creation. And I try to notice in my life, every single time I end up in fear, I end up in prevention. And prevention is just one of those fear responses. We all have different defense mechanisms. Some people just run and hide, right? So there's tons of different ways. But if you're in prevention, if you're trying to control, right, I want you to take that energy back. You are here to make an impact. You're here to make the world a better place, but it can't come out of the part of you that's guarding, right? If your genius is being assigned to guard duty, you're wasting it. And I want to help you get it back, right? Every hour you're spending defending is an hour of something that isn't getting made, okay? Big tree. Can't stop the weather. Grow those roots. Build those branches. But what if I build those branches and one of them comes off? Totally. It may. It absolutely may. It absolutely may. And you can keep growing. And I know you're going to miss that branch, and I know it's going to be hard. You may have to grieve and you may have to work through it, but you can. So what are you defending instead of building? And what would you make if you weren't defending it? You are a genius. We all have an inner genius, but if that genius is assigned to defense mode, then it is not in its full creative potential. So, look, we're all doing this work together. I'm excited about the campfire. Depending on when this episode launches, probably right after the campfire launches, but every Tuesday, 1 p.m., free group of leaders doing the personal growth work, letting go of these patterns, supporting each other. If you feel like you're carrying it alone, register for the campfire. Again, totally free. Come and hang out with us. It's a mastermind. It's a fellowship. We're doing this work together. And we're moving, in this case, we're moving from preventing to creating, because that energy of yours can do so many amazing things. And you just may discover the very thing you were afraid of happening, the thing that's going to happen, the thing that I knew was going to happen. I tried to prevent it, but it happened to me anyway. And I can't tell you how many times I've had a gut feeling that said, this thing is going to happen. And then I would put all this energy into trying to prevent it, and it would happen anyway. And then it would turn out like in retrospect, maybe it took 6 months or a year or whatever. It's like, actually, that's exactly the thing that I needed to happen. It turns out I needed to let that branch grow. I needed to let that branch go so that I could grow in the direction that I was supposed to go. So notice the areas where you're defending, preventing. Let's see if we can capture some of that energy back, use it to create what you were really meant here to create, make the unique impact that only you can make. Come join us at the campfire. Keep listening to the podcast. Please share this, like this, comment on this. Why? You got to tickle that algorithm for me, guys. I need you to tickle the algorithm. If you love the show, please leave a rating, share it with somebody. It's really important for getting this out to more people. So thank you so much. I'm passionate about it, and I'm really glad you're here because I couldn't do this alone. One last note before I go, because I forgot one thing, and I have ADHD, and that's who I am. Beneath all of this prevention is the feeling of powerlessness. Nobody wants to feel powerless. I get that. I can't tell you how many times I have felt that feeling, and then tried to figure out whatever I could do to avoid it. But if you look at Sarah's journey, then you can see, like, after the moments that she felt the most powerless, like with her old agency, when she surrendered to what was going on, that's what really opened up the door into being able to create. So sometimes acknowledging and allowing that feeling of powerlessness is exactly what opens you up to being able to create what you were meant to create. So feel it, work through it, don't try to prevent it. Maybe sometimes powerlessness is a signal and not a punishment. Okay. Thank you, guys. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. And as always, let's keep evolving on purpose together. See you soon.